What if the love you are desperately seeking is avoiding you because of the very energy you're using to call it in? What if the universe doesn't respond to the force of your desires, but to the gentle frequency of your surrender? We are taught to chase, to want, to hold on with a white-knuckled grip to the idea of a perfect love. But the most profound spiritual law of attraction, the one that leads to a soul-level connection, doesn't begin with wanting. It begins with detachment. It's in the quiet act of letting go that you create the sacred space for true love to find you. This is the paradox that will transform everything you thought you knew about manifesting love. And it starts not with a grand gesture, but with a simple, courageous whisper to yourself. I release you. This is the story of Alara, and perhaps in her journey you will recognize the echoes of your own. Alara was an architect of memories, a curator of a past love that had long since turned to dust. She lived in a museum of what-ifs and should-have-beens, each object in her sun-drenched apartment a relic of a future that now existed only in her mind. The worn indentation on the velvet armchair where he used to read, the collection of sea glass from a forgotten anniversary trip, the lingering ghost of his sandalwood and bergamot cologne she swore she could still smell in the quiet moments before dawn. These were her anchors to a pain she had mistaken for love. Her days were a ritual of spiritual striving. She would rise before the sun to meditate on a love that felt impossibly far, her affirmations for a soulmate echoing in the empty rooms. Her vision boards were masterpieces of romantic longing, collages of faceless couples walking hand in hand on autumnal streets and cozying up by crackling fires. She scripted her desires with the precision of a novelist, detailing every nuance of the man she wished to attract, from the sound of his laughter to the way he would look at her across a candle-lit table. She was following all the rules, ticking all the boxes of the law of attraction, yet her reality remained stubbornly, painfully, the same. The silence in her apartment was no longer peaceful. It was a hungry void, amplifying her loneliness. And then there was Kai, a musician she'd see at the local art gallery. His melodies were the soundtrack to her daydreams. He was the physical embodiment of her vision board, with a quiet intensity and a creative soul that seemed to mirror her own. But every time their paths crossed, the carefully constructed facade of her high-vibrational self would crumble. A storm of insecurity would rage within her, her words becoming clumsy, her energy feeling desperate. She was performing a role she thought he would want, the witty artist, the enigmatic muse, but the performance was hollow. He was kind, his eyes held a gentle curiosity, but there was an invisible wall between them, a wall she couldn't seem to penetrate. It was as if the very force of her wanting was a repellent, a dissonant chord in the symphony of their potential connection. The breaking point arrived on a Tuesday, under the melancholic gray of a relentless storm. Alara had been trying to paint, to channel the tempest in her heart onto the canvas, but every color she mixed turned to a muddy, lifeless brown. With a cry of pure frustration, she hurled her paintbrush across the room, the splatter of ochre on the wall a stark reflection of her shattered hopes. She sank into the worn armchair, the ghost of a memory, and finally she stopped fighting. She stopped visualizing, stopped affirming, stopped trying. She simply surrendered to the crushing weight of her own loneliness, her grief, her profound and utter exhaustion. The tears came then, a flood of unshed pain for the love she had lost, for the love she couldn't seem to find. She wept for the woman she was pretending to be, and for the woman she feared she would never become. And in that raw, vulnerable, and completely broken moment, a new voice emerged from the depths of her being. It was not the harsh critic or the desperate seeker she had grown so accustomed to. It was a whisper, as soft as the rain against the window pane, and it asked a question that would change everything. What if you just let it all go? The thought was an earthquake to the foundations of her identity. Let go of the memories. Let go of the hope. Let go of him. These attachments were the threads that held her together, the painful but familiar story of her life. Who would she be without this all-consuming quest for love? The whisper, however, was persistent, not with force, but with a gentle, loving insistence. Let go of the outcome. Let go of the need for him to validate you. Let go of the belief that you are incomplete. Just be here now with yourself. And so began Alara's journey into the sacred art of detachment. It wasn't a single dramatic act, but a series of small, intentional choices made each day. She started with the physical space. She lovingly packed away the sea glass, not as a painful goodbye, but as an act of gratitude for the lessons it had taught her. She moved the armchair, creating a new corner for herself, a reading nook that held no ghosts, only the promise of her own company. This was the first step in her emotional alchemy, transforming a space of longing into a sanctuary of self. Her art transformed as well. She stopped trying to paint the idealized love she craved and began to paint her own messy, beautiful, and authentic emotional landscape. She painted her rage in fiery reds and her grief in deep indigos. She painted the flicker of hope in shimmering gold. Her canvases, once constrained and hesitant, became vibrant, raw, and unapologetically alive. She was no longer creating for an audience of one. She was creating for herself, and in doing so, she was rediscovering her own soul. She stopped orchestrating accidental run-ins at the art gallery. Instead, she went for the pure joy of it, to lose herself in the brushstrokes of another artist's soul, to feel the silent conversation between art and observer. She began taking long, aimless walks in the rain, not to escape her thoughts, but to befriend them, to let the rhythm of her footsteps on the wet pavement become a moving meditation. She was learning to find comfort in her own solitude, to be her own best company. Most profoundly, she stopped trying to attract love and started to become it. She began to treat herself with the tenderness and compassion she had been desperately seeking from another. She honored her need for rest. She celebrated the small victory of a beautiful painting. She began to listen to the whispers of her own intuition. She was filling her own cup, and she discovered that the wellspring of love within her was far deeper and more nourishing than any love she could ever receive from the outside. This was the core of her healing through awareness. She realized that the law of attraction was not a cosmic vending machine where you inserted enough affirmations to get the love you wanted. It was a mirror, reflecting the energy you were embodying. When she was vibrating with the frequency of lack, of neediness, of a fundamental belief that she was incomplete, the universe could only mirror back to her experiences that confirmed that belief. But as she began to cultivate an energy of wholeness, of self-love, of creative passion, her entire reality began to shift. The universe began to send her whispers of its own, a chance encounter with an old friend who reminded her of her own resilience, a book that seemed to leap off a shelf, opening to a page with a message that spoke directly to her heart. And then, one day, the faint, familiar melody of a guitar drifting from an open window, a melody that sounded so much like Kai's music. It made her heart ache with a sweet, nostalgic pang, but not with the sharp pain of longing. She was no longer the woman anxiously waiting in the wings of her own life. She was the star of her own show, and she was radiating a quiet confidence, a grounded sense of self-worth that was more magnetic than any performance she could ever have staged. And that is when he finally saw her, not just her physical form, but the luminous energy of her soul. It happened in a small, tucked-away coffee shop with overflowing bookshelves and the comforting aroma of freshly ground coffee. She had discovered it on one of her solo wanderings, a new sanctuary that was all her own. She was sitting in a cozy armchair, sketching in her journal, a genuine, unforced smile gracing her lips. She was so engrossed in the world she was creating on the page, so peacefully at home in her own skin, that she didn't notice him enter. Kai had come in for his usual afternoon espresso, his mind still humming with the chords of a new song. He was scanning the room for a quiet place to sit when his eyes landed on her. He recognized her from the gallery, but the woman he saw now was different. There was a light emanating from her, an aura of self-possession and quiet joy that was utterly captivating. He didn't see the nervous, trying too hard woman from before. He saw an artist in her element, a woman who was a complete and beautiful world unto herself. He felt a pull, a resonance he hadn't felt before. He walked over to her table. "Is this seat taken?" he asked, his voice as warm and rich as the coffee he was holding. Alara looked up, and as her eyes met his, something miraculous happened. The usual surge of anxiety, the frantic inner monologue of what to say and how to act, was gone. In its place was a profound sense of calm, of peace. She wasn't trying to be anyone other than who she was in that moment. "No, it's not," she replied, her smile effortless and real. Their conversation flowed as easily as one of his melodies. They didn't talk about the weather or engage in polite small talk. They talked about the things that set their souls on fire. He spoke of his struggle to find his unique sound, how he had finally discovered it when he stopped trying to emulate his musical heroes and started listening to the music that was already playing in his own heart. And Alara shared her journey with her painting, the liberation she had found in embracing the imperfections, in letting her emotions guide her brush. They discovered they spoke the same language, a silent language of color and sound, of light and shadow. They had both been on a journey of coming home to themselves, of detaching from the need for external validation in order to connect with their own authentic creative spirit. As they talked, the hours melting away, Alara had a profound realization. This effortless, joyful connection was not something she had manifested through force of will. It was the natural, inevitable result of her own inner transformation. The detachment she had practiced was not about apathy or not caring. It was about caring so deeply for her own inner peace, her own alignment, that she was willing to release her attachment to a specific person or a specific outcome. It was about trusting that by becoming a vibrational match for the love she desired, it would have no choice but to find her. The spiritual law of attraction that begins with detachment is not a trick to manipulate the universe. It is a sacred journey of becoming. When Alara was a mirror of lack, she attracted experiences that amplified that lack. When she became a mirror of wholeness, she attracted a connection that reflected that wholeness back to her. This is the heart of a conscious relationship. It is not about finding your other half. It is about becoming so whole within yourself that you attract another whole person to share your journey with. So I ask you, as you sit with Alara's story, what are you clinging to? What past love, what future fantasy, what limiting belief about your own worthiness are you holding with a clenched fist? What might happen if you dared to open your hand? What magic might be waiting for you in the spaciousness of your own surrender? This is where your journey begins, not with a vision board, but with a courageous act of letting go. This is the path of emotional alchemy, of transforming the leaden weight of your attachments into the radiant gold of your own awakened heart. The energy of love is not a prize to be won, but a presence to be embodied. When you embody love, you don't need to attract it. You become a magnet for it. And everything that resonates with that beautiful, whole, and sacred frequency will be drawn to you, as naturally and as effortlessly as a river flowing to the sea. This is the secret that is whispered in the silence of a still mind and a strong spirit, and it is waiting for you to discover it. Let's deepen our understanding by exploring the dance of the divine masculine and feminine energies in this process. Alara's transformation was more than just an emotional release. It was a profound rebalancing of her inner energetic landscape. For years, her feminine energy, which in its healthy state is receptive, creative, intuitive, and nurturing, had been operating from a place of wounding. It had become distorted into a needy, anxious energy, constantly seeking validation and a sense of completeness from an external source. Her intense desire for Kai was a cry from her wounded feminine to be seen, to be chosen, to be made whole by a divine masculine presence. But a healthy divine masculine is not drawn to this energy. The divine masculine, in its highest expression, embodies presence, purpose, stability, and a quiet strength. It is not looking for someone to rescue or fix. It is drawn to a radiant, self-sourced divine feminine, a feminine energy that is so deeply in love with its own being, so secure in its own worth, that it doesn't need a masculine partner to feel complete. It chooses a partner to share its abundance with, to co-create with, to dance with in a sacred union. Ilara's journey of detachment was, therefore, a journey of healing her own divine feminine. When she returned to her art, not to impress but to express, she was reconnecting with her authentic creative life force. When she learned to savor her own company, to find joy in her solitude, she was learning to nurture herself, to fill her own cup from within. When she stopped performing for Kai and simply allowed herself to be, she was reclaiming her sovereign feminine power. She was no longer a damsel in distress. She was the queen of her own inner kingdom. Simultaneously, she began to cultivate her own healthy divine masculine. This is the inner pillar of strength, the container that allows the flowing waters of the feminine to feel safe. By setting boundaries with her own obsessive thoughts, by committing to her creative practice with a sense of purpose, and by learning to sit with her uncomfortable emotions without being swept away by them, Ilara was building this inner masculine structure. She was becoming her own safe harbor, her own protector, her own champion. This is the alchemical process of the inner marriage, the sacred union of the divine masculine and feminine within our own souls. This inner harmony is the prerequisite for attracting a harmonious outer partnership. We must learn to be both the passionate, creative energy and the stable, grounding presence for ourselves. Kai, too, was an embodiment of this balance. His dedication to his music was an expression of his healthy divine masculine purpose. He was a man connected to his inner world, his creative fire. He wasn't seeking a woman to complete him, but a woman who could meet him as an equal, a fellow creator who was just as passionate about her own soul's expression. When Ilara was operating from her wounded feminine, her needy energy was a vibrational mismatch for his grounded masculine. But when she healed and integrated her own inner energies, she became a magnetic match. Her radiant, self-possessed feminine was a beautiful complement to his purposeful masculine. They could come together as two whole, sovereign beings, ready to create a symphony together. This is the foundation of a conscious relationship, a sacred connection. It is not the merging of two half-people into one, but the alliance of two whole souls who choose to walk together, to amplify each other's light, to inspire each other's growth. I invite you to turn your gaze inward now. Where are your own inner energies out of balance? Do you find yourself in a pattern of wounded feminine energy, seeking external validation, feeling emotionally dependent, sacrificing your own needs for the approval of others? Or are you perhaps stuck in a wounded masculine pattern, constantly striving, forcing, trying to control outcomes, disconnected from your feelings and intuition? The path of healing through awareness begins with this honest self-inquiry. It is the courageous act of taking radical responsibility for your own energetic state. As you commit to this inner work, to the sacred union of your own divine masculine and feminine, you will witness a profound shift in your external reality. You will begin to attract people and experiences that resonate with your newfound inner wholeness. The dramatic, codependent relationships will fall away, and in their place, connections based on mutual respect, shared vision, and deep soul-level love will begin to blossom. This is the spiritual growth journey. It is a path of patience, of courage, of unwavering faith in the wisdom of your own heart. There will be moments when the old attachments and patterns resurface, but with each conscious choice to return to yourself, to honor your own energy, to choose self-love over fear, you are strengthening the foundation of your inner temple. You are becoming the one you have been waiting for. And from that space of wholeness, you will attract a love that is not a fleeting romance, but a sacred partnership, a testament to the beautiful, transformative power of your own awakened heart. Let's translate this spiritual wisdom into tangible, practical steps you can take, just as Alara did, to embody this transformative law of attraction. This is where the alchemy happens, in the small, conscious choices you make every day. This is how you cultivate mindful intimacy with yourself first, which is the foundation for a healthy relationship with another. The first practice is what I call the sacred pause. The next time you feel that obsessive pull, that intense urge to check his social media, to replay a past conversation, or to craft the perfect text to get his attention, stop. Just for a moment, close your eyes, take one deep, conscious breath. Instead of immediately acting on the impulse, dive beneath it. Ask your heart, what is the feeling I am trying to escape or to get by doing this? Is it loneliness, insecurity, a craving for validation? Allow the true feeling to surface without judgment. This is the essence of emotional alchemy, not suppressing the emotion, but holding it with a loving awareness. In this pause, you reclaim your power. You are no longer a puppet of your attachments. You are the calm, conscious witness of your inner world. The second practice is to curate your sanctuary. Alara transformed her physical space to reflect her newfound commitment to herself. I invite you to do the same. This could be a small altar with objects that bring you peace, a corner of your room dedicated to your creative pursuits, or simply the act of clearing out clutter that holds the energy of a past you are ready to release. But even more importantly, cultivate an inner sanctuary. This is a place in your mind, a visualization you can return to at any moment. It could be a serene forest, a sun-drenched beach, or a cozy library. Whenever you feel the storm of attachment brewing, retreat to this inner sanctuary. In this space, you can give yourself the feeling of peace, safety, and love that you were seeking from outside. You become your own source. The third practice is to follow the breadcrumbs of joy. For Alara, this was her painting. What is it for you? What activity makes you lose all track of time, makes you feel fully, vibrantly alive? It doesn't have to be a grand passion. It could be gardening, baking, dancing in your living room, hiking in nature, or learning a new language. Make a non-negotiable commitment to this joy. When you are immersed in an activity that lights up your soul, your energetic frequency naturally elevates. You are radiating passion, purpose, and wholeness. This is the most magnetic state you can be in. You are no longer waiting for someone to bring you flowers. You are tending to your own garden. The fourth practice is radical self-admiration. It's time to change your inner dialogue. Become your own most ardent supporter. A powerful way to begin this is to write a love letter to yourself, from the perspective of your higher self or a loving spiritual guide. In this letter, acknowledge your courage, your resilience, your unique beauty, your quirky imperfections. Read it aloud to yourself every morning. Let these words of love and admiration be the first thing you absorb each day. This practice rewires the neural pathways of self-criticism and builds a foundation of unshakable self-worth. The fifth and final practice is surrender to divine timing. This is the pinnacle of detachment. It is the profound trust that what is meant for you is already on its way, in the perfect time and the perfect way. It is the understanding that every closed door, every perceived rejection, is a divine redirection, guiding you towards something even better. Release your grip on the how and the when. Focus on embodying the energy of the woman who already has the love she desires. How does she carry herself? How does she spend her time? What does she believe about herself? Become her now. Live from that end result, not from a place of longing for it to arrive. As you weave these practices into the fabric of your daily life, you will begin to notice a profound shift. The anxious, seeking energy will dissolve, replaced by a quiet, centered, and magnetic peace. You will discover that the love you were so desperately seeking was simply a reflection of the love you were not yet giving to yourself. And as you fall deeply, madly in love with the woman you are becoming, the universe will have no choice but to bring you a partner who is a perfect reflection of that magnificent love. This is the spiritual law of attraction that begins with detachment. It is not just a path to finding a partner. It is the path to finding yourself. And that is the greatest love story of all. As we conclude our time together, I want to leave you with one final thought. The most epic love story you will ever experience is the one you are writing with your own soul. You are the protagonist, the hero of your own journey. When you learn to love and admire this character with every fiber of your being, you will no longer be auditioning supporting characters to fill a void. You will be seeking a co-protagonist, another whole and heroic soul who is writing an equally compelling story, with whom you can create a breathtaking new chapter. Thank you for allowing me to share this journey with you. If Alara's story has touched your heart, I invite you to join our community of conscious creators. Share your own experiences with detachment and love in the comments below. Your story has power, and it may be the lighthouse that guides another soul home. Be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into spiritual psychology, conscious relationships, and the art of becoming the love you seek. Until next time, may you have the courage to let go, the grace to trust, and the wisdom to know that the love you desire is already and has always been within you. This is the quiet mythos. This is the way of the still mind and the strong spirit.